Let me read to you a passage from the 14th chapter of St. Luke's Gospel, verses 1 and then verses 7 to 11. It's the Gospel for Saturday of the 30th week of Ordinary Time. St. Luke writes, On a Sabbath, Jesus went to dine at the home of one of the leading Pharisees, and the people there were observing him carefully. He told a parable to those who had been invited, noticing how they were choosing the places of honor at the table. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not recline at table in the place of honor. A more distinguished guest than you may have been invited by him, and the host who invited both of you may approach you and say, "Give your place to this man," and then you would proceed with embarrassment to take the lowest place. Rather, when you are invited, go and take the lowest place, so that when the host comes to you, he may say, "My friend, move up to a higher position." Then you will enjoy the esteem of your companions at the table. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. That's from Luke chapter 14, verse 1 and verse 7 to 11. We are led to think of humility. There have been numerous people who have been very opposed to what they call priestcraft. That is to say, they are against any religion that brings into prominence a caste of priests or religious leaders who are endowed with authority over others in religion. These accusers maintain that the professionals of the religion are in the business mainly for the power it accords them over others. Now, there is no doubt that this indeed is a problem. The reading I have done of indigenous religions suggests to me that much of the sorcery, the magic, the prohibitions, and the secrecy characteristic of many tribal religions is fueled, at least to a degree, by the desire of certain individuals or groups to control others and to be regarded as of a higher status. Reading between the lines of the Gospels, one gets the impression that the scribes and the Pharisees who were most opposed to our Lord felt threatened by his spiritual ascendancy. By implication, as they felt it, their position of honor was being undermined. It was their own honor that, without perhaps fully realizing it, they were seeking, and many of the institutions of religion which they insisted on supported their religious status. The Gospel I've read a little earlier reminds us of this. In the remarks our Lord made to one of the leading Pharisees to whose home he had been invited, he showed not the slightest fear of the loss of the regard of leading people as he delivered his gentle rebukes. We read that, and I quote, "On a Sabbath, Jesus went to dine at the home of one of the leading Pharisees, and the people there were observing him carefully. He told a parable to those who had been invited, noticing how they were choosing the places of honor at the table." When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not recline at table in the place of honor. Luke chapter 14. They were proud and they sought status, and it led to their profound hostility towards our Lord. This lack of humility in much of religion and its practitioners ought remind us of Christ's insistence on humility as the true hallmark of revealed religion. God favors the humble and singles them out for special favors and missions. At the beginning of the Gospel, we are told how the angel Gabriel came to Mary and with profound respect addressed her as full of grace, and that the Lord was with her. Mary was humble and lowly, and in her prayer, the Magnificat in Luke, Mary extols the Almighty who had looked upon his lowly handmaid. The Lord had done great things for her. Christ himself was meek and humble of heart. And St. Paul tells us that though he was in the form of God, he did not cling to this exalted status, but emptied himself and became as men are, and lowlier still, even to death on a cross. The Son of God abased himself, and so God raised him on high. In our gospel passage that I read earlier, our Lord refers to how in ordinary life, by choosing the lower place, one may well be exalted. This is an analogy. His point is that if one prefers the lower place in life and takes the path of humility, as did Christ himself, then God will raise one up. Our Lord stressed with the 12 that the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his very life as a ransom for the many. So too must they serve. At the Last Supper, he rose from table, placed a towel around his waist, and proceeded to wash the feet of his closest disciples, of those who called him rightly Master and Lord. They were to do likewise. Indeed, not only were the 12 to do this, and all those who succeed them in the Christian priesthood, but all of Christ's disciples are to do this. The distinguishing mark of the disciple of Christ is a humble love and service of others. Humility is to be the true characteristic of the Christian religion. There is a further key to the matter which must be learnt. It is that if the disciple of Christ wishes, as he should, to follow Christ in his humility, the only way he will learn to be humble is through the acceptance of humiliations. Humiliations, and they come in a plethora of forms, whether hidden or open, are the means of growing in humility. This is the great message of the Christian masters of the spiritual life. Let us then accept them when they come, and do so in union with Christ, who trod the path of humiliation, showing forth the humility of God.